Guys, it is such an honor today to have Jennie McLaughlin-Levrone here. She is, as many of you know, she has won 2 Olympic gold medals. We have enjoyed watching her run since she was 16. She was the youngest athlete at that time to run track and field in the Olympics. My husband said, Jennie, they're like having to create races for her because like makeup races because she keeps breaking all the world records, and where do you go from there? So I'm so honored to have you on. And my favorite thing about you, Jennie, is just how we've all celebrated as you have just given God so much glory on your path. And so thanks so much for being here.
Having me. I appreciate it.
I want to talk a little bit about you and just your mindset. Right now on the podcast, we're talking a lot about emotional health and emotions. And I can imagine that you've experienced a lot of emotions that might be even inhibiting or you had to deal with as you run at that level. What has that been like for you?
Yeah. The book talks a lot about it, just in terms of, for so long, kind of those emotions consuming who I was, in terms of just being afraid of my results being tied to who I was and my identity, and my value being found in whether or not I was a winner and whatnot. So a lot of fear over the years, but Christ has been kind and helping set me free from that and allow me to walk and, in this case, run in faith. But those emotions can, yeah, definitely lead to some dark places if they don't have anything to be rooted in.
Yeah, so the book is called Running from Fear to Faith. And so there must have been, for it to be in the title, there must have been some significant feelings of fear. To overcome those, what did that look like for you?
It honestly looked like surrendering my life to the Lord. I grew up in a Christian household, but my faith was not really my own, or it wasn't. I didn't understand the gospel. The veil had not been lifted from my eyes until COVID, and that for me was, when the Lord was kind to reveal Himself to me through the gospel, and it looked like a lot of, being a renewed creation and setting your mind on things above, like Colossians 3, just the word really just washed me clean of a lot of those thoughts and feelings and emotions that I had. And it's always, it's my source now of how I overcome fear, those fearful moments. Opposite of fear is faith, and just being able to stay so firmly rooted in that has helped me a lot with some of those moments where the fear creeps in.
Okay, so take us back to the race you were very, very most nervous about.
Man, I would probably say, oh, that's a hard one. I think there were so many growing up. Seriously, I would probably say maybe the Olympic trials in 2016. Being 16 years old, trying to make the team, that was terrifying to me. I didn't feel like I deserved to be there. I was racing against some of the best women in the world who were a lot older than me, more mature than me, had better training than me, and so the enemy was definitely attacking me in those moments, but by the grace of God, still somehow I think the Lord showed me that this is what I was called to do, even though
Sure.
I did not have an understanding of how He wanted me to do it yet.
When you're about to get on the box and you got to do this, you've got to perform. What do you do in your head? I know what you do now, but back then, when you go back to the most nervous you've ever been, like what did you mentally do to get through that moment?
I even back then I would always tell myself, God's got you. You know,
Mm.
God's got you regardless of this moment and what happens. And He gave me such a natural instinct to compete that whenever I would get on the line, that would always take over. It was just getting there that was the hard part. And so it was very clear that even in those moments, I knew He was with me. I didn't know what that really meant or looked like for a long time, but I would just repeat to myself, God's got you. Like, let's do it.
Mm. Well, you've got to have felt a lot of happiness in this journey as well. What are some of the moments that just you couldn't believe yourself?
Tokyo 2020, just breaking the world record for the first time at the Olympic trials. That was a surreal moment. Just so much went into that. I remember that whole meet, we were praying as a team beforehand, me, my coach, my trainer, my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time. And, just right before that last race, we just knew something special was going to happen. And we just felt the presence of the Lord with us. And so being able to go and break that world record was just unreal, to take it under 52 seconds. And, how he's just used that and propelled it has just been amazing. But that was a very joyful, surreal moment.
You're in a moment too with marriage and a new book and Olympics again. I mean, what's your life like, your daily life? How are you juggling all of these new things?
Some days are busier than others, but I mean, everything is just an opportunity. And it's a very busy season of life right now, with the Olympics coming up, with the book releasing. My husband's in seminary right now. So we have very full schedules, but I mean, all of these opportunities are wonderful. And so being organized helps, being in prayer helps, and just taking it one day at a time so that we steward what we've been given well.
You're a strong woman and have accomplished a lot. I'm very curious about your husband. What is he like?
My goodness, if you thought I was strong, oh my goodness, physically strong, but like also the biggest encourager. I mean, he helped disciple me, just a wonderful speaker. I think he's perfect for seminary and going to make a wonderful pastor, God willing, one day. But yeah, he is my rock, and I'm so grateful for just how the Lord's brought him into my life and allowed our lives to move in this direction, because it's every day is just growing and sanctifying, and it's just truly a blessing.
Okay, let's talk about the book a little bit more. What made you want to write a book?
When the opportunity was presented to us after Tokyo, I wasn't sure I was ready to write a book. I was like, I don't know, like 22 years old. I don't know how much, at that time I was 22. I didn't know how much I really had to share. But being able to, have the opportunity to share my testimony in such a broad way, the Lord will use it. His word will not return void, and it will reach who it needs to reach, and encourage those who it needs to encourage. And so yeah, I've dealt with fear my whole life, and I wanted to share how Christ has set me free. And I pray that it'll encourage somebody else to seek him, because our inheritance really is far beyond gold.
Do you feel fear about anything anymore? Do you feel like you've faced the biggest fears there are to face and now, what is there to fear?
I think fear is in this world, it's always present, and there's always going to be, opportunities and things that'll come about that will present fear. But I think it's how do you combat that? What
Right.
in
Yeah.
that moment is your solace and your rock. And for me, that's the word of God, that's prayer, that's Christ, that's renewing my mind, and bringing his truths into the picture. So I think, yeah, fear is always going to want to creep back in. The enemy's never done trying to attack you, but it's how do you combat those in those moments?
When you go to the platform God's given you, has it been ever hard to talk about him because you seem so bold?
Yeah, I think I honestly think it's the spirit of God working in me that brings the boldness. I naturally, I'm not naturally a talker, and I'm not naturally a very vocal or outgoing when it comes to certain things. But I mean, the gospel is meant to be shared, and it's meant to be shared with everyone. And I think when I, got saved, my perspective shift of what is my purpose in life, and that is to share the goodness of the gospel and Jesus Christ and what he offers through salvation to the world, that track and field is my opportunity to do that, and this book is an opportunity to do that. And so I can do it boldly and unashamedly, as the word talks about, because there is an assurance that comes with it. So yeah, it's the Lord will use the word how he sees fit, and all I have to do is be obedient in sharing it.
When you go back to little girl Sydney and she realized she was fast, when was that?
Oh man, I think that was probably when I was like 6 or 7.
Okay.
That's when I started running. But I remember I went to the Junior Olympics when I was 7 years old, and that's like
Wow.
all the kids from across the U.S., like in all the different age groups. You race your age group from the best, the best of the best in the country, and I think I got second place, and The girl who beat me, she was amazing and she was on a team and she trained, and my parents didn't really train us. They just let us go run for fun. And, I think I knew like, okay, I love this and I feel like I'm good at it. Yeah, I think my parents knew also at that time, like, okay, she has a gift to run.
What'd you feel about it? Did you talk about just more of what you felt about running? Like, did you just love it? You love beating people? Did you just love running? Like, I mean, who loves the hurdles? Like, that's what I'm saying. My kids run, and so I know a lot about the hurdles, and they scare the tar out of me. I cannot imagine, like, entry into the hurdle.
They were a little later in life.
You had too short of legs at 7, I'm sure. Yeah.
But I think what I love about running is the freedom that I feel during
Mhm.
those moments. I don't know. I feel the presence of God move when I move. And so, even at the age of 6, I do love to compete. I will be honest, I'm a natural competitor. I do love to win, but I've, you know, I've learned that what I love is the feeling internally when I am on that start line and the gun goes off and the freedom that I experience going around the track.
What about when you're the best in class like you are? What is what how does that impact like relationships and friendships?
Man, I think I mean, I have a wonderful support system and some amazing friends that are very supportive of what I do. And I think that's the only way you can keep going at this level is to have such wonderful people around you. And I'm so grateful for that because at the end of the day, like it takes a village to do a lot of these things, and it's not just me. Um, and I think over the years, some friendships come, some friendships go. That's a part of life. But I've definitely found some wonderful, solid, godly people who have just continued to just be, rocks in my life that have just we've grown in relationship over the years that don't even talk or pertain to track and field really, just like life itself and who you spend your time with. So yeah, I think as I've grown, I've developed who I am. And I think that's a part of friendships is like knowing who you are. And for so long, I didn't know that. And I think that's kind of helped me figure out who it is I gravitate more towards. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a daughter of God, and I love to. I mean, outside of track and field, which is
Yeah.
obvious, I love to write poetry. I'm learning how to be a seminary wife right now. And yeah, I mean, I really aspire to be a mother one day. Like, I can't wait for that season of life. And I'm super into arts and crafts and all those kinds of things. And I truly do love genuineness in people. And I think
Mm.
I gravitate towards people who are very genuine. And those are the friendships I try to build and have long lasting. And so, yeah, all things that I'm just continuing to grow and learn and as I mature.
Is Olympic years, are they your favorite?
They are my favorite. I think they're also my least favorite at the same
Yep.
time. It's a long year and it is a weighty year, but at the same time, it's a blessing. I'm excited for just how it brings like the world together, and just having, family and friends and the best athletes from all over the world compete is just such a cool representation of all of the abilities that God's given everybody. And so I love being able to be a part of that.
What do you do after an Olympics? Do you go celebrate?
I think my husband and I want to take a vacation, like just the two of us. Like I said, it's such a busy season of life. Would love to just get away and take a nice trip and, just kind of decompress from everything before we get back right back into it.
Sure.
So
Talk about perfectionism. That's one of the things you talk about in the book, and I think a lot of people relate to. That's also served you well, I imagine. It's both, right? It's a curse and a blessing?
I think perfectionism, everybody wants to be great at what they do. They want to do it well, excellence, which is great and that's biblical, but at the same time, it can consume who you are if
Yeah.
you allow it to. And so, we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect. Christ is the only perfection that we can visibly see or even, strive to be towards. And that only comes by, the renewal of our spirit daily. But I think I'm at a point now where, yeah, I'm aware that it's never going to be perfect, but I can work hard towards what it is that God's called me to, because ultimately it's Him who brings the growth and not me.
I think about the impact of just the relationships you probably have, even with other athletes. Talk about just those. You don't need to name names, but like have conversations come up that are, I just would think that everybody relates in that situation where you've got so much pressure on you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a real thing. And I mean, there's so many athletes who, especially in the US, like they know that our team is very hard to make during the Olympic trials. It's one of the hardest teams to make. There's so much talent and it's a lot of pressure. There's only 3 spots available for each event. And yeah, there's been conversations with athletes of just, dealing, how do you deal with this? How do we go about this? What scriptures have helped you in these moments? What
Mm.
have you been reading, and just being there for each other and being able to see past the fact that we're competitors, but we're also people and there are sons and daughters of God who are on that track as well. And that's been the most rewarding, just being able to talk and to really like connect on that level. A wonderful, wonderful high jumper from, I believe, Australia, who's a believer, and she's amazing. She's started Bible studies at certain meets and stuff, and we've been able to connect and talk. And it's just cool to see such talented people from all over the world and see what God's doing in their lives. So it's unreal to see all of the impact that's had all over.
Yeah, really. I mean, when you're looking at the issue of perfectionism, you probably still have to carry part of that with you, right? Like that pressure. It's not escaping the pressure. You're going to live with the pressure forever. So, what's the new relationship with pressure? Do you dread it? What do you feel about that word?
Yeah, I think we live in a world where, like you said, it's always going to be present, and like we talked about earlier, it's how you combat that. But it's always an opportunity. I think it also can fuel you to a certain degree. Like these moments are opportunities to grow. Can I handle this better than I handled the last one? Can I handle this Olympics better than I did the last one? So like things like that.
Okay, let me stop you there. What would that look like for you this year? Different than the last one?
I think that's a wonderful question. I think last Olympics was a great Olympics. Obviously, it was a COVID Olympics, so I didn't have friends and family there. But I think this year for me, um, just being a little bit more present in the moments.
Mm.
On the only task at hand, it's very easy to forget that this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity that God's given you. And I can be so focused on what I'm doing that I forget to look up. And I think I want to be able to be present and just be like, God, thank you for all of this, yeah, just not forsake the moment as it's coming, regardless of what the result is.
And I'll pray for that for you, Sydney, because that I get that you're living in a pretty surreal life in those moments where you can't and you've got the whole world watching. I do think the whole world is really cheering for you. I think it's fun to watch you. I think you are. It's so fun to watch someone humble and yet the best. And even if you don't believe in Jesus, you make God look good. And and I'm so grateful for that. What would you say, we're winding down a little bit. I want you to talk to the perfectionist out there that's listening and going, I can't even deal with my college tests. Like I can't even deal with my job and disappointing my boss. Like I'm not even close to the pressure you feel with the world watching you. What would you say to them today?
Man, that's a wonderful question. I think, and I've been there in a lot of moments, but the reality is, and it sounds crazy to say, is that we've all fallen short of the
Yeah.
glory of God first and foremost, but we all fall short every day. And so God's not calling us to be perfect. He's actually calling us to lean on Him. And sometimes I know for myself, when I try to be perfect and do everything in my own strength, I'm actually being selfish and thinking that I don't need God. And I
Mm,
think it's a joy to be able to lean on the one you're intended to lean on and to know that you don't have all the answers in and of yourself. That is the humility of our need for the gospel, is that we
mm,
are not self-sufficient. We do need him. We do need his wisdom. And so I would encourage you to look internally and ask yourself, am I doing this out of pride, or am I doing this because I want to please God so badly that, yeah, I want to be perfect? And my encouragement either way is that that's not his intention for you. His
mm,
intention is actually to have faith that he will lead you and that he will give you what you need when you don't have it.
mm. You've crossed over into making history now. So you will be remembered. Not everybody can say that, certainly at your age, that they will be remembered. You will be remembered after you're gone. What do you want people to say about you?
Love the Lord more than she loved anything this world had to
Oh,
offer.